Okay, good morning everyone. Back for the second video here on the Making a Valheim Map series, and what we are going to tackle today is we're going to tackle creating the player's spawn point, and we're also going to tackle making different terrain noises for different biomes. So obviously with the player spawn point in Valheim, as you know, when you land in the world for the first time, the world origin, you land at the world origin, it's a circle, and the terrain is going to be pretty flat, and it's going to be meadows. I'm not worried about the biome right now, but that's more or less just adding another ring and doing a height splitter, etc. that we've done previously to create the ringed things. And creating a spawn pad is basically the same thing, but I'm just not going to worry about the biome right now. Another thing I've done in my graphs is I've just tidied it up a bit. The end of the color buffer ends in a variable, which then is picked up just for organization purposes, and I've done the same with the noise. But we are going to be jumping in before this ring, and we're going to be working here to flatten the terrain around the world origin. And you will be familiar with that process. In fact, let's just copy and paste it. That one, great. But it's going to be much closer. And we are going to get a much more relaxed noise to work with. 2D advanced noise. The amplitude is going to be very small. It's always going to be positive, so we're going to use the absolute node to make sure that all the values coming out of it are positive. And we'll even add a little bit, because we don't want all players starting at 0, because that's where our sea level is. Let's start them at height 500. And then it's very simply, we are just going to interpolate between this, the original terrain, using the height here, and whack that into the alpha of the next chain. Well, let's see what we've got and if I've done it right. Great. Okay, so the terrain is now flat. It's 500, well, a little bit more than 500 units above 0. And you can see it's got a pretty sharp cut off between other biomes. To increase that, we can just whack this fall off up. And there you go. It's now gently transitioning into other biomes. This is maybe too flat and boring. We can have a look at giving it a little bit of variation by lowering the feature scale here. It's not too easy to see, but there is a bit of movement there. If I was to whack up the amplitude, you'd see it very quickly. Lower the amplitude. Let's go down to 500 and see what that looks like. Okay, it's nice and flat. And when I've got my player start is at the 500 that I added directly, and the half, well, a little bit more than the half height of the character. Really, if we never change this seed that is driving this spawn pad, the results are always going to be the same. So as long as my player does land, doesn't fall through the world, then we're fine. He's always going to start there. It doesn't matter what everything else does. And that is now set up. We can tweak the fall off into other biomes if we need to. We can make the spawn pad zone a little bit bigger if we need to. Yeah, making it bigger can be beneficial, because if you're in an area where, if your other noise means that you're in a massive lake and everything else is underwater, you can accidentally end up spawning the player on an island that might only be 5,000 units across. That's the randomness of procedural generation, but it's going to depend on if you're giving your player the tools to get to the next noise-generated continent, or whether you need to give him a large enough space with enough resources. So that's one consideration with these spawning platforms. But that there is done. Okay, now we want to make a different noise node for the meadows and the black forest. And very simply, we're going to be doing a similar activity. This is our base noise. So this is what I'm going to use for the meadows. And I'm going to add to it when I'm using my black forest. And how I'm going to meld those together is with another lerp. It's going to look like that. I'm going to get the mask for my black forest, which is, it's right there. And I'm going to plug that in. That then becomes this. Now, I've got 10 octaves right now, which is making the terrain quite bumpy. I don't want my meadows to look like this. I want my meadows to look a bit more blobby. And maybe even a bit lower down, a bit flatter. That's going to affect how much mountains I've got, so I'll need to think about that again when the time comes to it. But at the moment, I'm just going to be working on my black forest. Now, to add noise to this, I want to add somewhere between 2 and 5 octaves, but I'm going to start with 3. I don't want to be using the same feature scale. So the way octaves worked, previously we had this at 10 octaves, right? And that's just repeating the noise logic on top of itself. So the first octave would have had an amplitude of 20,000 and feature scale of 100,000. But because of the linearity in the gain, the amplitude is shrunk on each subsequent octave, and so is the feature scale. So for my final octaves that I'm adding on as part of the black forest, I'm going to want a much lower amplitude and a much lower feature scale. My feature scale is probably going to want to look something like 6,000, and my amplitude is going to look something like 1,000, if that. So what we're going to see is we're going to see the black forest get a lot bumpier and the meadows stay the same. Just make this a bit bigger. Okay, so yeah, black forest bumpier, meadows didn't change. The cutoff here is pretty sharp, and to fix that we go back to where we generated the mask, the black forest mask, and we just increase the fall off here. Okay, so now you can see, now the material will blend this gently on a nanite world. There'll be a hash cut off somewhere on a nanite world. But what you can see very clearly is that I've got a nice flat meadows area here and then a bumpier black forest. And that's basically it. So for each biome you will be looping in a new noise into this chain for each of your biomes. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. I'll keep this one short. I'll be back next time where we will finish adding in the plains and the swamp, and then we might look at foliage. Thanks very much.